I think there's this really big shift with Gen Z entering the workforce. They are just like so anti all the bullshit about work. And I'm like all for it. Yeah, like stand up for yourselves. But there's also like, I don't know, a little bit of a rite of passage, I think.
I 100% agree. I mean, I don't want to ever have someone go through some of those experiences I went through because
Same.
they were truly terrible. But at the same time, I'm like a better person for it. I'm like, what's going to happen if everyone's like just gently parented? And same thing with the workforce.
I'm curious what your personal philosophy is on coaching.
I think there are purists, and I'm no longer really a purist. I see it as a tool. So, yes, I call myself a coach, but a lot of the work I do around helping someone land a new job is probably more in consulting and advising because they don't want me to just ask them a bunch of questions. They're like, what do I do? Most of the folks that I've worked with want a hybrid because they want the experience that I have of being in tech and being in a strategic role. And, how do you get promoted? And how do you do that without burning out?
I've realized that my mindset has changed when I see people from my high school or college and I see that they're trying, they're just doing something. It's new. They're not good at it yet. I've like changed the narrative in my head. And now I'm just like, wow, they're doing something and they put themselves out there and they got over that fear, which is I think what stops so many people from accomplishing things that they want to do or achieving their dreams. And I just decided like, I'm just not going to be that person. I'm just going to try. Well, Shab, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. I'm really excited to have you on Professional Life Crisis. And I know you are very familiar with professional life crises. I'm sure both your own and the people who you coach. So I'm really excited for you to share your experience and for you to share anything that you've reflected on over your career that might help other people. Would you like to introduce yourself a bit?
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name's Shab. I am a leadership and career coach for women in the tech industry. And I've been working for the last decade across consulting. And then I worked at Uber for about 6 years in strategy and planning. And then most recently left in 2023 to do professional coaching for women in tech for the last couple of years. So it's been a journey to get here, and I'm looking forward to reflecting on it.
Oh, that's so juicy. I feel like we can talk about consulting, we can talk a bit about tech, and of course we'll talk about your coaching practice. If you had to like sum up your experience in consulting, I'm so curious to hear how it may be similar or how it may differ from my experience. What was yours like?
I worked in a mill, so I was labor.
Okay.
It was really tough. It was like one of the most challenging in terms of just starting a career. I think I learned a lot, but I felt like I was just like thrust into situations that I probably wasn't prepared for. And it helped me grow, but it was really stressful and I didn't like it.
Yeah, I did not like it either. Although, so when I was talking with another one of my guests who also did a little stint in consulting, we were talking about how it's such like a weird echo chamber that consulting just makes you feel like that's what everybody's doing. And that's what all the people your age are like, like it's just this like highly sought after desired career. And in so many ways, like I don't think it's worth all the stress that comes along with it. But she and I were talking about how it's maybe beneficial for someone who needs a little bit of a structure at the beginning of their career. Like there's a lot of policy, there's a lot of process, and it gives you that if that's what you're looking for. But I realized later, like, I don't think that was what I was looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I got that job in college. Like I didn't have to worry about finding a job after my junior year internship. So I thought that was rock solid for me. And it was like an okay salary right out of school where I had no experience. So I'm thankful for that. But I learned a lot about what makes leadership effective and what's really bad in leadership. I learned a lot about what I like to do and what I really didn't like to do. I didn't really like being in that really super client facing role where I was interfacing with really senior people. And that was good experience, but that was also horrific in some moments. And,
Retweet.
yeah, like I was just like, oh my gosh, I have to go talk to the head of like their tech department. And she knows I have no idea what I'm doing. Like,
right. She knows I'm 22 and I'm making everything up.
I was like, okay, I guess I'm just like a professional actor as well. Like,
that's great. Wow, I never thought about it like that, but boy, did I learn how to fake it till you make it.
Yeah, so that's okay. All those big companies make money off your labor. Like, they just pay you a lot less than what they're charging for your hours. But
yes.
I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see how the new generation is dealing with it, because I've heard they're having a harder time recruiting and retaining younger talent.
Well, I think there's this really big shift with Gen Z entering the workforce. They are just like so anti all the bullshit about work. And I'm like all for it. Yeah, like stand up for yourselves. But there's also like, I don't know, a little bit of a rite of passage, I think, that we went through when we started our careers, and we sort of had to like do the shit we didn't want to do. And we kind of had terrible managers from time to time. And those things all kind of helped me build character, and it sucked at the time, but I think that grit kind of helped me through the rest of my career.
I 100% agree. I mean, I don't want to ever have someone go through some of those experiences I went through, because they were truly terrible, but at the same time, I'm like a better person for it. So I don't know. I think it's like kind of reminds me of all this like gentle parenting stuff I'm seeing come up on Instagram. And I'm like, what's going to happen if everyone's like just gently parented? You know, and same thing with the workforce. Like, are you making them capable of, you know, meeting the challenges of life? Maybe, I don't know, maybe not.
Or maybe we're like coddling too much. I don't know, but I hate the fact that I'm even saying that, because I appreciate that they're standing up for themselves and that they're putting boundaries and that they're saying no to like dumb shit that they don't want to do. But at the same time, like, what happens when the entire workforce is like that? And it's not just like this generation of new, fresh talent that has that attitude. I don't know. Like, maybe we'll just cut a lot of the bullshit from work. Who knows? Maybe there's going to be a really positive outcome from Gen Z's effect on the workplace.
Yeah.
TBD.
Maybe then the differentiating factor for people is that they are the ones like raising their hands to do it, and maybe they're going farther in their careers if that's what they want to do. I don't know. I feel like it's like kind of choose your own adventure right now. So we shall see.
Yeah. And a lot more of Gen Z seems like they want to stay in those individual contributor roles. And like, I've seen lots of TikToks of people being like, hell no, I don't want to be a manager. Like, I want to do my job. I want to get paid and I want to leave. And I respect it. You know, like, not everybody should take a management track or like should go up the corporate ladder just because that's like the pre-carved out path. So maybe there is something to it. We'll see.
Yeah.
So you wound up leaving consulting to go and work for Uber. How was that experience? What kind of roles were you in there?
I loved working at Uber. So I basically stayed in strategy and planning for my entire career there. I moved from just focusing on US, Canada, Uber Eats, which was super fun because it was the newer startup within the company. We weren't taken seriously until 2020, basically, when everyone started using food delivery.
Yeah.
So it went from being kind of niche to being like
a necessity,
the thing that everyone had to do. So that was super interesting being there from not quite the early days, but after we kind of moved to the marketplace that everyone is used to using and expanding into. At one point, we were in almost 40 countries. Then we scaled back a little bit. But being part of that journey from US, Canada to eventually being on the global team, where I got to see how Uber Eats was used from around the world. And I worked with people from Mexico, Australia, Japan, all over Europe, South Africa. It was like an amazing experience, truly.
What an incredible like journey you got to go on with Uber Eats. So after spending 6.5 years at Uber, you decided to go into coaching. And I'm really curious to hear about what inspired that decision, what from your Uber experience led you towards wanting to be a coach, and just sort of how you made that leap.
I took a lot of personality tests at Uber. It was something our teams just did. You know, there was like 20 of them I basically took.
Yeah. You're like Myers-Briggs, your number Enneagram, your gold, blue, orange,
right?
That one is.
And all of them were pointing me to it was like, you're just such a relationship focused person, you know, you're all about being inclusive and you're empathetic and, you know, you care about motivating people. This was actually from Strengths Finder by Gallup. I really like that one, actually. And it was telling me all of the things that were necessary for my job were like some of my weaknesses. And that was a very interesting moment where I was thinking, am I in the right job? Does it have to feel like so hard all the time?
Yeah.
I was really thankful I was able to develop those weaknesses because I actually think I am quite strategic now and I can be very analytical. But at the same time, by nature, I feel like I'm very relationship oriented and people oriented and all that. That's to say, that kind of was the spark for me where I was like trying to just be honest about what I was doing and my career trajectory. And so I just got curious with it. And I was like, well, what kind of jobs could I do? And my manager at the time, best leader I ever worked for, but he had no clue what to do or how to steer me besides just staying on the team and kind of working in a new capacity, which I ended up doing. I ended up really moving away from being purely strategic externally to thinking about organizational effectiveness and how to strategically plan with the company, which was very stakeholder intensive. But it still wasn't enough. So I was thinking, well, I love managing people. Like, it makes me really happy to actually see the people that are working with me to develop and grow in their careers and blossom in that way. And so I just got curious. You know, he said, maybe you should be in HR. And I was like, I don't really want to be in HR.
Thank you, but no.
I watched the Office and I was like, I don't want to be Toby. So
No.
that was why. So anyways, I didn't give it a chance, but I was like, maybe business development, maybe partnerships, but I'm glad I didn't jump ship because a lot of folks on that team ended up getting laid off in 2020 and I probably would have been one of them. So I just stayed on my team and I talked to a lot of folks that were outside of the company who had left Uber. And one of my friends started executive coaching. And I was like, what is this? You know, and she just kind of said, hey, maybe you'd be good at it. And I went to a webinar for Coactive CTI. That's where I trained eventually to be a coach and did their program through certification. And I just absolutely fell in love with it. You know, moral of the story, just following a simple curiosity and being truly honest with yourself, you really don't know where it will take you. Because I didn't really expect to start a business or do this full time. I just kind of went in with, maybe I'll find something cool here.
Yeah.
It was low pressure.
I'm also trying to be a bit more perceptive of my own intuition about what feels right and what feels hard and where I find flow with my work and leaning into that and then trying to lean away from experiences that just like have a lot of friction and feel difficult, but like for no reason. I wonder what your philosophy is now that you've gone through that sort of self-realization about whether it's best to try to work on your weaknesses and to try to like expand on your skill set or to really just like lean into your strengths and try to find roles or opportunities that help you to shine and showcase those strengths.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of up to you. For the most part, what worked for me is developing the weaknesses till I was good enough. I didn't have to be a master at all of those things, but it got me to a place where I felt really confident because I was like, okay, I feel like I've covered my bases there and it's not necessary for me to further develop those weaknesses to truly be successful in what I want to do. But now I can speak the language, I have the foundation, and I'm able to communicate in an analytical and strategic way and think those ways, which has been actually really helpful in what I'm doing now. But also leaning into the strengths and finding the contexts and situations that allowed me to shine was even more helpful for my confidence. So I feel like, yeah, you don't want your weaknesses to be totally unchecked and just your blind spot, but you just need to know what is good enough because you don't have to, like, you only have so much energy. So, real life example, I used to be doing business analyses and, you know, I was coding like SQL and pulling data from databases, like doing data analyst stuff. Was I the best at it? No, I was not the best at it. And I realized that, and I was like, all right, well, I probably will never get promoted doing this work.
Yeah.
Does this feel good? No, because I had other goals. I was like, I want to make more money. I want to move into management. I don't think I can do this here. So let me like figure out how I can move into an area where this is like being good enough is perfectly fine, and I can expand on doing something that's more in my wheelhouse. And I was able to do that at Uber too. So I'm very thankful for the time I had doing that kind of work, but I'm so glad I didn't end up moving into like, data or machine learning stuff. I would have been miserable.
Yeah. I think you need to know yourself. And I try to use my strengths as like the core of what I work on. And that's where I find my flow. And that's where I'm like excited to do those tasks. And then my weaknesses, I agree with you. You just have to be good enough at certain things to pass. It's like a tool in your tool belt. Your weaknesses, like some of those things just may be tactical things you need to know just to get by. But when you feel that friction, I don't think it's worth like, buckling down and just saying like, I have to learn this. This is like what I'm doing now. So it has to be forever. Knowing that you can like detach from that after you reach a certain level of proficiency is good for your mental health.
Yeah, or else, I was like, it was really hard. I was like, there's some people on this team that are just like running circles around me. And who am I going to be compared to? These people on the team. They only have so many spots to move up in a level here. There's only so many people who can get outstandings, at performance review time. So those moments are like, okay, do I keep struggling here or do I just change course? And I'm glad I did.
I'm glad too that I've made the pivots that I have when things just didn't really feel aligned, because you can just buckle down and you can keep grinding, but for what? For what or whose benefit? Like at a certain point when I got old enough and I felt secure enough in my career, I realized like I'm not doing this for me anymore. And like maybe I was doing it for other people at the beginning of my career, but now I'm doing it for no one. So that means I need to I need to get out of here. I need to reconsider.
I was 100% doing it for the fact that I wanted everyone to think I was smart.
Mm-hmm.
That was like entirely why I did any of the work I did in the beginning of my career.
Yep.
Why I went to consulting, why I went into strategy. I was like, oh yeah, they're going to think I'm smart. Who did anyone think I was stupid? I don't know.
I don't think so. Right. Like who are these voices that we even are trying to combat in our heads? Like,
yeah,
it's not usually a real person.
It's not. We pick those up from moments in time, also from being coached and reflecting on my own career. I realized, I picked up these stories that I wasn't smart enough or good enough from experiences in school. I was in a slow learning group in 7th and 8th grade, and I didn't have a learning disability. So I don't know why I was in that. I was pretty average because I never did my homework in high school. I mean, I did enough, but I wasn't like a 4.0 student. I got rejected from tons of universities. Like these moments I picked up and then, ran with
onto those.
Yeah. Like then I was like trying to almost prove something to myself. And then I realized, well, this isn't really even, why is this my North Star?
Yeah. Why are we latching on to these like really short blips in time of negative experiences when there's so much more positive evidence in our lives on the regular and from real people who actually care about you and who actually exist?
Yeah.
But we all fall prey to it, I think.
Totally. And I think like these moments will then come up again in your career. And then you might actually have confirmation bias looking for the moments where they're going to prove to you, oh, yeah, you are stupid, or whatever that voice is telling you. And then it can become an inferiority complex that you're always trying to prove your way out of. And that's what I'm seeing with a lot of people I work with, too.
I grew up with this like little plaque that was always in my mom's office. And it said, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And I think that's,
wow.
It's just the narrative that we have in our head is really indicative of like how we see ourselves and how we then show up in the world and how we show up at work. And just trying to change those narratives, I think, is a huge part of whether or not you will find success.
I love that. That's such a great plaque.
Yeah. I forget who. I'm sure somebody important said that quote. So it was not from me. Nor
That's
was it
amazing.
originating from my mom's office. But yeah, that always stuck with me. So you talked about some of the experiences in your own coaching when you've been coached. Is there anything that's been like the most impactful for you in terms of growth coming out of your own coaching?
Yeah, it was all about getting out of my own way. I'll give you a very specific example. When I started coaching and I said, "Oh, I need to find people to coach." And I was thinking, "How am I going to find those people?" And someone was like, "Well, you can probably make a post about it." And I was like, "No, I can't." You want me to post on where? Instagram and LinkedIn? That sounds terrible. They're like, well, how are people going to know? And I was like, I don't want to be seen. I don't want people knowing about this.
Mhm.
And getting coached on that fear of being seen was really powerful for me because now I don't really even think twice about posting on LinkedIn. I'm not really into Instagram right now, but LinkedIn has been one of the greatest ways for me to connect with people and for not even people I don't know, but just people that I went to high school with, people I went to college with, my former coworkers, all of them. Now they're like, yeah, I know that you're doing this. And they're thinking of me and they're sending people my way and they're hiring me. And I'm like, if I never got over that fear, what would have happened?
Right. And yeah, can vouch that LinkedIn's a great place because that's how we met each other. And I think you're totally legitimate for posting on LinkedIn. So whether it is or is not a sham, I'm believing it. So I'm sure other people are too. Like it's real because like you've shown up, you've made yourself credible. And I know there's like this fear of seeing you trying that I think people like get so paralyzed by. And I don't know what happened. I think for me, it was getting laid off from my prior startup job where like that fear just like went out the window. I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna start a podcast. I don't know anything about podcasting, but I'll do it. Yeah, I'll post on Instagram. I'll post on LinkedIn. Like, whatever. What do I have to lose? I don't know. It like almost like ripped off this like band-aid for me of that fear. I was like, I don't give a shit. I am not in the group chats from high school where people are going to be talking shit about this. So it really doesn't matter if they are or they aren't. And like, they probably aren't because other people just don't really care about you as much as you think that they do. So I don't know. I just like, I said, all right, like, I'm just going in. I'm just doing it.
That's it. I know that point you just made about people don't really care what you're doing.
No.
They really don't.
They don't.
We're all so much more self-absorbed like than we really think we are. We're always just thinking about ourselves, which is normal. I mean, it's not a bad
But everybody
thing.
else is also always thinking about themselves, not about you.
That's right. Yeah, like nobody cares. And the people who care, like whatever, why are you obsessed with me? And the people who don't care are the ones who are cheering for me when they see my post. But it's not like they're thinking all day about, oh my God.
Yeah.
You
like,
know,
I can't believe she's trying to do that. Yeah. Like,
yeah,
they're just not. They're just not.
Most people have been very supportive.
I've realized that my mindset has changed when I see people from my high school or college and I see that they're trying, they're just doing something. It's new. They're not good at it yet. I've like changed the narrative in my head from like looking at it and being like, oh, like this is not good. And now I'm just like, wow, like they're doing something and they put themselves out there and they got over that fear, which is, I think, what stops so many people from accomplishing things that they want to do or like achieving their dreams eventually. And I just decided like, I'm just not going to be that person. I'm just going to try.
That's right. And I feel the same. Every time I see someone posting anything on LinkedIn or, my friends who are doing like Bookstagram, if that's what they call it, like they're posting book reviews and they're like gaining new friends and followers. So I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, girl. Like you go, girl. Yeah. Anyone on LinkedIn, I always support their stuff. Like I always send them a message. I'm always like, good for you. Cause it's hard.
Yeah, it is. It really is. So I would love to talk to you a bit more about your coaching practice. And specifically, I'm curious what your personal philosophy is on coaching. I know you went through the CTI program, and so they have a philosophy on coaching, and all these programs have different ones. And I also would love to answer the question how you view coaching versus like consulting or advising, because I think a lot of people kind of mix those up in their heads. And it'd be great to just get a clear idea of like, what do we mean when we say coach and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, I think there are people who are purists here, and I used to be. I'm no longer really a purist.
Uh-huh.
I see it as a tool. So, yes, I call myself a coach, but a lot of the work I do, if it's around helping someone land a new job, is probably more in consulting and advising because they don't want me to just ask them a bunch of questions. They're like, what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the clear difference here between coaching and advising and consulting is coaching is really supposed to be exploratory, open-ended questions, getting the client to really understand their own views on things and why they might believe something, and perhaps helping them shift perspectives on their own. And they get there through creative thinking and exploring new ideas. What it's not is telling someone what to do. And so I think you have to really think about, okay, does the client actually care about the differences? Maybe, but most of the folks that I've worked with want a hybrid because they want the experience that I have. They want that experience of being in tech and being in a strategic role. And, like, how do you get promoted? And how do you do that without burning out? Like, past experience is really key for a lot of clients. Now, do they care if I'm putting on my coaching hat and my consulting hat? No. I'm thankful I learned how to purely coach, though, because it's such a powerful tool. But I don't personally think that you have to delineate that when you're actually working with someone. At the end of the day, people just want to solve their problems and they want to actually take action. And so helping them achieve that is the ultimate goal. And how you do it is just based on the tools that you're going to think are the most effective to get it done.
I wonder if that hybrid approach is driven by your niche. So you said that you work with female leaders in tech, and they are often trying to solve the tangible problem of like career advancement and getting promoted, I would assume. So do you think like that has a big impact on the way that you approach coaching?
100%. I think you can use the pure coaching when they're like, I have no idea what I want to do, and finding, clarity in their path is great for doing that creative thinking. But, helping them with a resume needs some tactical advising, right? Helping them navigate the job market, tactical support is needed. So yes, it's definitely due to my niche. And I think if I was just being a life coach or helping people, in a more nebulous way, could be great for peer coaching. And I think there's a lot of great coaching that can be done in the executive coaching space where we're talking about leadership concepts and how we show up and how to be an effective leader in both the workplace and in our own lives. So it will just show up differently depending on what the outcome is the client needs.
I think that makes sense. And the reason that you have this niche, I'm sure, is partly due to the fact that you have expertise in the tech space. And I can imagine that it wouldn't be all that helpful to show up to a client who needs help with getting their resume in order and you just asking them all these philosophical questions about their mental blocks. They're like, no, I need help with my resume.
Yeah, nobody wants that. They're just like, what the hell? And that was the biggest challenge I had while I was getting trained because they wanted us to record ourselves and we got feedback. And sometimes, my client would be asking, well, how do I, have an effective budget?
And you're like, this has nothing to do with mindset.
No, like, what do you like? You can explore that and you can help them really tap into who do they want to be? Like, why do you want a good budget? Like, what's the version of yourself you're stepping into? But at the end of the day, I need to help her think about how to allocate her income.
Right. So, right. Like tactical problems that need solved.
Which I was able to do that, but it was not going to get me any points or a good rating with my coach training program because they wanted me to be a coach. So yeah, it is what it is.
It's nice to hear you say that because I think some people get stuck trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And they're like, no, but I am a coach and I offer mindset and, like life coaching. Then I work with startups and I advise a lot of startups on their go-to-market and their marketing. And they same problem. They have this product or this service and they're like, this is so good. This is what I'm offering. But they don't realize that when someone has a problem, they need a specific solution to that problem. So you approaching it with your like kind of, separate thing that doesn't really get at what they actually need solving now, they're not going to buy from you.
100%. That was actually the best lesson I learned starting the business, because in coach training, they don't tell you how to have a business.
Yeah.
They don't.
Which they should.
That's not the focus, though. I agree. Yeah. I think that's why there's a lot of business coaches out there that are helping coaches, which is like a whole another conversation. But
I know. When I see all of that, I'm like, is this like another MLM? Like what? Like we're coaching the coaches. Okay. And like there's some that have like really...
But yeah, I mean, I think that's why there's such a gap in the market and nobody knows how to do it or talk about how they help clients. And so for me, it was like a very like come to Jesus moment where I was like, oh my God, if I want to have a business, I have to like adapt to what people want and how I talk about what I do. And it can't just be, as much as it is fun to do the fluffy stuff that feel like it sounds fluffy, it's probably actually very impactful, but that's so untangible. You know,
unless someone's looking for that. If they're looking for the like life coach, they're looking to find some meaning or some enlightenment or some direction. And then I think that's a completely different niche.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I mean, for me, I was like, well, I don't want to just like pretend that I didn't have all this great work experience and that I don't understand this, the context of the tech industry. Like, I just think that's too valuable to let go. So I'm going to move in this direction and see how that goes.
Yeah. You don't want to put all of that grinding on your weaknesses to waste.
Right.
So I imagine you have helped many other people through some of their roadblocks and maybe even through some of their own professional life crises. But what was your most impactful professional life crisis over the past couple of years?
It really comes down to knowing that I need to be way more confident in who I am and what I bring to the table if anyone else is going to see that. And so I actually started going to a therapist at Uber. Like, they brought in a therapist for people. And I had such low self-confidence when it had been only like a year or so I had been working there, but I said, this is not working. I feel like I am failing at this job. And that was my own feeling because I wasn't on a PIP. Nobody told me I was failing. I just thought I was underperforming and it was really impacting me and how I showed up. And I just had such an inferiority complex. Like, that was the biggest thing I had to get over because I was good. I'm good at communicating. I can speak with leadership. I'm great at presenting my ideas. I wasn't great at time management, but that's okay.
Who is when they're so new? Who is? Yeah. I don't know.
But I was like working really hard and I was like, I feel like I'm just not good at this. And that was scary for me. So I started seeing a therapist and like, honestly, working on my inner monologue was probably the most impactful thing I ever did because I stopped being as hard as I needed to be. Like, I'm still hard on myself. Don't get me wrong. I'm still pretty hard on myself.
Like, we always will be, I think.
Yeah, we always will be. But I don't have to be cruel. I don't have to be mean to myself. And that was what that therapist taught me. And that is what I see as being a big need for everyone who works in a pressure cooker like environment. Like,
oh, what a good term.
It is, because I was put in this like situation as a young woman and I thought, oh my God, like, this is it. I made it. This is the best place ever. Everyone's so smart, way smarter than me. That's when it started going. Way smarter than me. They know things I don't know. I'm incapable of keeping up with them. And it just spiraled from there. And it was like hell in my head.
Wow. I think that when you are a freshling out of college and you are a woman and you're entering the big scary workforce for the first time, I felt so overwhelmed. And I wasn't used to that feeling because I previously had, been successful and, been told, yeah, you're smart and you're good. And then you get to this place and you're like, I don't feel smart or good. I feel very inadequate. I feel very new. I feel like everybody around me has a bigger network, knows more people, knows more things, has better, this, that, and the other thing. But I've realized that putting myself in those situations where I can learn and grow from other people has actually helped me to level up so much more than I would have if I would have just stayed in environments where I was the smartest person. Like, I don't ever want to be the smartest person around. I don't ever want to feel like I'm the one who has it all figured out, because then, are you still learning and growing? But I've realized like how uncomfortable that growth feels, and it's not really fun while it's happening. I think that's like something that people get wrong. They're like, oh yes, like I'm growing, I'm doing the work. I'm like, no, you are growing and doing the work, and it is uncomfortable and it is hard and it sucks sometimes. But like at the end, you look back and you're like, holy shit, I can't believe that I like made all of these like improvements and changes over the past 2 years or however long it's been.
Yeah, those moments in my career were probably the most pivotal thus far. Like that was probably the most I grew and was challenged in the first few years I worked at Uber. I mean, the people that I got to work with were so damn smart, and they were very nice. I mean, most of them, but
there's always an outlier or two.
There's always, they're like, but for the most part, they were so great, and I made some really good friends, and my network there is what has helped me in my business. Truly.
That's great. Now you have something to show for it on the other side, but it's hard. It's hard when you're in the thick of it.
Absolutely. So anyone who's going through that, if you're listening, you're like, this sucks, yeah, it sucks. It's not going to last forever. And set an intention for this time, set an intention for what you want to get out of this moment, because being perfect at your job might not be it. It might be to see how you do in the face of immense challenges, or it might be to how you navigate through moments in time like this, or it might just be getting the promotion, but it doesn't have to be so outcome focused like that. It can be purely like, how am I going to grow and develop during this time?
I need to be better at that, like in the moment. Looking back, it's easier to identify those things, but it's really hard to do in the moment.
Yeah, totally.
So looking back on your own journey and maybe the feedback that you navigated from other people when you were on your journey towards becoming a coach, what advice would you give to other potential new coaches who are looking to get into the industry and are questioning themselves and just struggling in a lot of the same ways that you probably did when you were new?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest piece of advice is to have enough financial runway when you first begin.
Snaps for that. Becoming self-employed, I can relate to that. It takes some of the stress off.
I mean, I've been investing since I was 21 years old. I put in a lot of my income to growing it through the employee stock purchase plan, and I have not really sold a lot of my stock from Uber. I pretty much invested a big percentage of my money. I didn't put it in savings. And I lived at home for 3 years after college. Like I did some like really unglamorous things in order to have that financial runway. I didn't know what I would use it for, but I'm using it for this right now as I grow and develop the business to a place where I can live off of it. And that takes a long time. I think it can take time. Yeah. And a lot of people don't want to hear that.
Mm-hmm. I relate to many of the things that you said. I also lived at home for more than 3 years. Yeah, a little over 3 years when I graduated. And I also put a lot of money into the employee stock plan at Accenture. And now that I look back, I'm like, wow, I spent like 4.5 years at that job that I really just, I hated it. And I knew that I hated it, but I knew I was saving for some kind of a rainy day. I didn't really know exactly what was going to happen. I thought maybe at some point I would start a business. I certainly didn't know like how it was going to take shape, but I am also glad that I took those annoying, responsible steps when I was 21, 22. It definitely made a big difference now. And I didn't feel like I had to panic like as soon as I got laid off and find another job, tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know what I would do. I'm so thankful. That was a skill my mom taught me.
Yes,
I'm really grateful for that. I don't think a lot of people even know where to start. And I'm thankful there's a lot of education and financial literacy is becoming cool.
Yeah.
And it's
There's so much good stuff on Instagram and TikTok now. You can educate yourself.
Everyone knows that exists, so that they're looking for it. And I think that's great, because that's like the one thing, you know, even for new college grads, like, what's like some career advice? And I'm like, invest your money. Doesn't matter what career you have, you know, the first few years you're just figuring out how to be at work, you know, and deal with being professional. Yeah, like having a job and being an adult, like for real, and like managing your money is a big part of that. And so don't go blowing it all on booze. And I don't know what people are doing nowadays, because I heard Gen Z doesn't drink as much, but
I know skincare, like, they're doing skincare.
You don't need that like expensive serum. You don't even have any wrinkles.
Right. Like, you're 20. Calm down.
Yeah, just get a moisturizer and some sunscreen. You're good. Yeah,
sunscreen. Just wear sunscreen. That's it. That's our best advice from this podcast.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. What is the number one thing that you wish you would have known starting your career? Was it about money? Was it about investing? Or was there something else profound?
Oh, I wish I knew that starting over isn't a failure. So, you know, going and trying something and pivoting is totally fine. Nobody really knows what they want to do. I coach women who are like in their late 30s and they're like, I don't know if I want to do this. And they feel scared to change. And it's like, no, we're all changing. People are changing at 50. People, you know, we're always changing as humans. So why would the job stay the same?
Yeah, and also, like, we are not our parents' generation. Like, they didn't change. They probably stayed put and worked at the same jobs for 35 years and took their pension and have nice retirement. But that is not the way that careers work nowadays. It's not how people go about their lives and their jobs, I don't think.
No, I mean, I can't buy a house for 30 grand like they did in 1965.
No.
And you could do that working at the market. You know,
right.
You could
the
do
post
that.
office.
One income. So no, I mean, everything has changed. So we must adapt, and you will change and you will adapt, and that's okay. You can change your job. It's never too late. These timelines are arbitrary, and let's not keep adhering to these standards that were set by the older generation or by what we think we needed to be doing based on TV, or what Kathy from your college is doing, like that you don't even talk to her anymore. Like, why are we doing this to ourselves, you know?
I love it. Yes, it is never too late to try something new. I'm learning that, and I am finding so many exciting things from just getting out there and trying different things. I've reinvented myself a few times, and it's been fun every time. It kind of just evolves as I evolve.
And you wouldn't have known if you never tried.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. If I would have just stayed in what was comfortable, I wouldn't be having all these new experiences where I get to learn and grow and have fun conversations like this.
Oh, that really makes me think. The other thing I guess it was just one thing I wish I knew, but I think the other thing I wish I knew is I have to define what success looks like for me, and no one else can do that, or you'll be miserable if you're adhering to someone else's version of success. I mean, it's all in line with what we've been saying, but that's a really important piece that I'm still working on right now, because my original definition of success was making more and more and more money every year.
Yep.
And if I kept to that, I would be pretty damn miserable right now.
You want to hear what my original definition of success was when I was like 20? I just laugh about this. I said, I want to retire by 25. Which, RIP, wish I would have, but here we are. I'm 29, still kicking, and I am excited about the work I'm doing now, and I don't feel so miserable in my job where I feel like I needed to retire 4 years ago. But yeah. And I think also something that I'm noticing as I get older and as my friends get older is that we all kind of started in a more similar path, more similar like corporate roles with like a start class and very specific expectations where the definition of success was pre-cut for you. It was like, here it is. This is what you have to do. Get promoted every 2 years, get this, get that, promotion, pay raise, that stuff. And now that I see myself and my friends' lives diverging more, I see people on the sort of less traditional paths or just sort of progressing in different industries. And I realize how different all of them are. And that this notion that there's like this one idea or path to like success is kind of bullshit. And also what makes my friend satisfied or happy is not necessarily what would make me satisfied or happy. And so we shouldn't all be like chasing that same very singular version of what success was to us when we were all 22 and just starting and we didn't know anything about the world or ourselves.
It's so crazy to me where we're putting all this pressure on our younger selves to like have it figured out for life.
Yeah.
No, that's like an immense amount of pressure. That's not even at all like something that I think even can happen. I don't think that it can ever happen. I even think people who do feel like they figured it out at 21 are going to change their minds eventually because again, you're changing, you're growing, and your goals get to change and grow with you.
And also, I think if you pick and you stick to whatever you wanted to do when you were 21, you're probably vastly limiting yourself because the career/job that I am in now, I didn't even know about when I was in college. There was nobody telling me that people were out freelancing, doing go-to-market strategy for startups and having podcasts. Like that wasn't on my radar. And if I had just like continued on that path of just like go into consulting, climb corporate ladder, get money, like you're just missing out on so much. You're missing out on all the things that you might learn later on in your life. All right, so we are nearing the end. Are you ready for the lightning round of questions?
Yeah.
Okay. You can use 3 adjectives to describe yourself at the beginning of your career journey. What would they be?
Unprofessional, quirky, diva.
Oh, love it. Somebody else used diva also, I think, on the podcast. And I was like, oh, yes, we all thought we were so important.
Yes. And I wasn't.
And how untrue was that?
Yeah, and I wasn't that professional, which is fine. But, I was talking to someone yesterday and they said, how could you deal with everyone being fake at work? I was like, I feel like she just doesn't like professionalism. And
maybe.
I mean, I think everyone's kind of fake at work because we
have a representative that we bring of ourselves to work. That's not us.
That's okay, though. Like, we need to like treat everyone with a certain level of respect.
Mm-hmm. Okay, second question. What's taught you more, your failures or your successes?
Failures. I don't even remember my successes.
Really? Oh my goodness, that's funny.
It's hard for me. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a negativity bias I have, but I always learn much more from the failures. They're very memorable and
memorable for better or for worse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the last question. Passion or paycheck?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think you need the paycheck first, and then you can do the passion. And if you can make it both happen, wonderful. But I think most people, I would advise paycheck, then passion.
Yes, that mentality is survival and then, happiness.
Yeah.
And that whole theme about investing your money when you're young gave us both the leeway to go after things that we were passionate about that don't necessarily pay a full salary yet. And if I hadn't done the paycheck choice before, I don't think I'd be at the passion choice now.
Yeah, but again, we're like younger than 65. So, like you don't have to necessarily think you have to do that for 40 years. You get to do that enough and put it in the stock market. It typically grows over the 10-year period, right? So by the time you're
like
29,
asterisk, legal disclaimer.
Yeah,
I'm not a financial advisor.
This is not financial advice. But what we have seen historically is that it will grow at a pretty decent rate, and then you get to do whatever you want because you have this nice nest egg, and I don't think there's a get rich quick scheme here or win the lottery, but
I tried, but so far it hasn't
me
worked
too.
out.
Yeah, I still play. Yeah, I know. It's like I have these crazy fantasies. I buy a lottery ticket.
I'll keep working, but also if I win the lottery, then I won't, and everything will change.
Yeah,
but
I know.
Hey, you never know. That's their slogan, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. It's funny. Every time I buy a lottery ticket, I'm like, this is it. I'm going to win.
Oh my God, these numbers feel good today. I don't know. There's something in the air. That was me too, but clearly we're still here. So didn't win, but that's okay. This brings us to the end. And I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your expertise from consulting to being in tech at Uber and then eventually to forming your own coaching practice. And thank you for sharing some of your more vulnerable stories from your own coaching. I hope that it helps somebody who's listening who is either interested in hiring a coach or who's interested in becoming a coach one day. So thank you so much for all that you've shared today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Amanda. This was super fun, and I hope this helps anyone who needs it. And just be easy on yourself if you're listening to this and you're going through a hard time and you don't know what you want to do. It's like totally okay, and just follow your curiosities.
Love it. And if people would like to find you and reach out to you, how can they do that?
So I play primarily on LinkedIn. You can connect with me there. You just type my name in and you'll see my profile.
I will tag you in the podcast episodes show notes so that people can find you and reach out to you and follow along with all your amazing content on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you.